investment in the value that he brings to the table, from the rights to the merchandising to everything.
Instantly relevant.
And he turns 36 years old this month. His career earnings thus far, $435 million. So he will be an owner of an NBA team. Now, that's in Cleveland with Dan Gilbert. If they can work that out, that could potentially happen. But LeBron James will own an NBA team. Trust and believe that.
How about that? He's always talked about being a mogul. There's nothing bigger than that.
He always thinks about his business. I mean, even the other day on the podcast, he was talking about he wanted to bring on Luka Doncic to be the first LeBron James shoe. Like, he wanted that to do that internally within Nike before Michael Jordan got it. He's always thinking about his business and his properties that way.
It's a great point. Speaking of Michael, Michael had a couple sons that played basketball, and I can only imagine the pressure on these guys. And your dad is the GOAT, the greatest player to ever dribble a basketball. But his son, Marcus, and his son, Jeffrey, played. Most notably, they had a little bit of a stint. UCF, transferred to Illinois, but obviously, the mantle that dad set, the bar that dad set, so difficult for both Marcus and Jeffrey, who have been successful in their lives, just not the way, obviously, their dad was on the court. LeBron James has a 16-year-old son you may have heard about named Bronny. He's a sophomore in high school, and this extension for LeBron, the 2 years, will get him to 2022, 2023, right around the time that Bronny would be eligible to join the NBA. LeBron was on the Uninterrupted podcast, which he has a financial stake in. Speaking of mogul, always got his hands in something, right? He is a businessman, as Jay-Z would say. You guys probably didn't think I knew that, but LeBron essentially weighing in and essentially saying about a year and a half ago that I don't care how many titles I win. I don't care if I go back to Cleveland and win one. I don't care if I win one with the Lakers, whatever. The best thing that could ever happen to me on a basketball court, no matter how many Larry O'Briens I hoist, would be this.
What was the greatest achievement of my son in the NBA? That will be number one in my lifetime as an NBA player. Play together or play against.
Now, this was said 18 months ago. Fast forward, he's got a title with the Lakers. His son continues to ascend. He's 16. Jay, is this a possibility of happening?
He's LeBron James. He's arguably the greatest player to ever play the game, regardless of whether you have him 1, 2. I know Paul Pierce has him in the, just barely in the top 5, which is ludicrous, by the way. But still,
it is.
Like, it's the greatest player in the game. So my thing is, Bronny James.
I know, but I'm just hearing it again.
Well, that's Paul Pierce. That's a whole different conversation. I don't want to go on a tangent. Let's get back here to what we were talking about. All I'm saying is Bronny James is in a position to go to a top-tier college. If he goes to a top-tier college and if he plays decently, consider he continues to develop, he'll make an NBA roster. There are a lot of people who are on NBA rosters who are right there on the cusp of being in the G League, being overseas. But this reality of business is all about relationships. It's all about relationships. You cannot tell me, now that could be with the Lakers or it could be with another organization, that a team would not draft Bronny James, granted, he keeps developing, okay?
That's the key.
In order for him to potentially say, hey, maybe your dad would like to come here and play with you at the tail end of his career. That would do, and Key just talked about this, the incentivization. Is that even a word? I just made it up. I said it.
It is now.
It is now. For a team to do that, to say, come to my organization, increase the value of my organization, fill the seats with fans, and play with your son and live out your dream at the tail end. If the Lakers can't do that, some organization will take a chance on Bronny James to do that.
As long as he continues to develop, I mean, it's hard. Look, he's not a 6'7" freshman. You know what I'm saying? He's a smaller guard that's a freshman in high school that has some time to develop into his body. When you think about LiAngelo Ball 6 years ago was a itty-bitty dude.
You mean LaMelo?
I mean LaMelo. LaMelo.
Yeah. There's a lot of balls.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. He was a small. Now he's a 6'7.5", 6'8" guard. Mm-hmm. So as he continues to grow and get better at it, then yes, I'm an owner of the Sacramento Kings, for instance. Just use that team. I'm willing to sign LeBron James to help me build an infrastructure, fan base, whatever it is that we're looking for at that time. And if I draft his son and bring him on the team, that son, obviously, we're not just drafting a guy because he's walking down the street. He's got to have some ability to be able to play, right? And so you would think that LeBron James and his crew is making sure that his son is developing at that level where he'll be able to live that dream. I hope he
continues to develop. But Bronny James does not need to be 6'7" to be drafted. You can draft.
No, you don't need to be 6'7". I'm just saying, as you continue, because he's so young, how hard is it to evaluate somebody in the 9th grade?
No, I think he's a sophomore.
He's a sophomore. 10th grade.
10th grade.
Yep.
All I'm going to say, though, is let's say hypothetically, and this won't happen because obviously being around great players and having access to the resources and facilities, his game will continue to blossom, continue to develop. But let's say hypothetically his game doesn't develop and it stays the same. Maybe he just grows a couple inches. Maybe he's 6'3", 6'4". You're going to take a chance on him in the second round because of the opportunity. Because of the opportunity that LeBron James might come to your organization to play a year with Bronny James, his son. Or the Lakers will find some way to bring him on board. I'm just saying if you're an owner or a GM, you're looking at this differently, especially if he doesn't develop any later in the second round. So many teams stash people in overseas for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, let him develop.
Yeah, you're telling me you wouldn't do that with Bronny James? For the opportunity to bring LeBron James to your organization to increase awareness. You talk about an injection or an infusion of energy with Russell Westbrook going to D.C. Why wouldn't you look at this situation the same thing if you're an owner or a GM?
I think that's a great point.
No, you do. And to my note, the only professional athlete father-son duo was Ken Griffey Jr. That's the only one that I can think. I've been sitting here trying to think. I know there's a lot of fathers who's played, whether it's Michael Thompson and Clay or the Berry family, but not at the same time.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I want to give you some context on age. You mentioned LeBron here at 36 and what essentially is going to happen when Bronny is 16, 20-year age difference or thereabouts, if you want to call it. Great call, Key. Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr. joining the Mariners.
Stole your notes.
Back in the day. Yeah, you're beating me at my own job. Don't be too good at this. I got to fill in the gaps here a little bit. The elder Griffey Sr. was 40. Griffey Jr. was 20. So right there, right around 20. So 40 and 20 in that baseball comparison. But that's the most notable one, at least for the moment. We'll see. Keyshawn J. Will Zubin presented by.
I'm sure somebody will be tweeting you and say, "You fools missed it. Well, it's this player."
Tweet us, KGNZ. Yeah, tweet us, KGNZ. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Protecting your small business is a big deal. Cover what you've worked so hard for. Visit progressivecommercial.com. Still to come, can a JV-like football team win the Super Bowl, especially the morning after one of the great recent rivalries has been renewed? But
I thought you was about to say recent one of the great games.
That game was atrocious yesterday.
Yes, because as I was watching, I mean, you're the football expert. You played in the Super Bowl, but if I had to sum it up in one sentence, it would be, man, the Steelers couldn't catch and the Ravens couldn't throw. But we'll talk about that at 6:15 in just about 15 minutes from now. But as I mentioned, if we're not talking about football at the top, something really big has happened, and that would be an NBA trade. Russell Westbrook traded to the Wizards in exchange for John Wall. Jay, I want to get your thoughts about it right away, just because it has been more than 700 days since John Wall has played in an NBA game. The day after Christmas in 2018, he's been injury-riddled here. Recently, Russell Westbrook reunited with Scotty Brooks, who was the coach when Russ won that MVP. What does the deal mean in your mind?
Well, if I'm James Harden, I'm waking up today saying, get me the hell out of here. Get me out. I need to go either to Philly. I need to go to Brooklyn. I need to get out of here because this is not what I signed up for. And I don't know if this makes me happy to be here in Houston long term. If I wake up and I'm Bradley Beal on the East Coast in D.C., I'm saying, oh, I think we have a chance to be top 5 in the East right now. Getting Brody to come here to D.C., getting Davis Bertans to sign a 5-year, $80 million deal. This puts us almost in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. So, look, I now look at Houston and I say, John Wall, I hope he comes back and has an incredible year. Hasn't played since 2018, okay? He's injury prone coming off that injury. You have DeMarcus Cousins, injury prone coming off an injury. Now, that's an interesting team. If I'm Houston, if I'm Raphael Stone, how much longer can you hold on to James Harden without him publicly becoming a disgruntled employee? So if he's at a post presser every single day, when you know he's going to be asked this question over and over and over again, are you happy here? Eventually Harden's going to tell you how he feels. Do you lose trade value the longer you hold on to him? Or now are you starting to look at the Brooklyn situation and say, hey, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, some future first-round picks. Maybe that is enough for a guy like James Harden, because I feel like James Harden has given his heart and soul to Houston. James Harden deserves to have a shot at winning a world championship, and that will not occur in Houston. He has a better chance of doing that with Brooklyn or Philadelphia. Do the right thing for James Harden.
Do the right thing for James. Do the right thing for James. I look at it and say, you know what? This is kind of like for Westbrook going east and Wall going to Houston, they kind of just swapped contracts and players of that style to me. I mean, you get a healthy guy versus a guy that you really don't know a whole lot about unless they've had some private workouts of some sort on video where they've had an opportunity